is LeSean McCoy? Is he? Yeah, he's on tape here saying that Cailtin Clark is the most influential white athlete of all time. Let's play the clip.
She's one.
Oh.
She's one.
Damn, that question.
Boy.
I'm saying,
Cailtin Clark, the most influential white athlete in all of history, Shady McCoy.
And he got to be white.
Cailtin Clark up there, bro.
She is the most influential women's athlete of all time. I think Serena was great for us. She was great.
The greatest.
Who was watching women's basketball? Think about what we're talking about, though.
Nobody.
Baby. Yo, you wasn't. You wasn't. He wasn't. Nobody's watching girls basketball. And then we get this girl like Steph Curry. Everybody watching. To this day.
To this day.
Women's basketball is looked at like the NBA, like the NFL. They got their own channels now on ESPN. We talk about them on when was you ever at the last time you heard people just talk about women's basketball on TV? Like a real block. Now you see, there's blocks where they're going to talk about Luka and they're going to talk about Cailtin Clark.
True.
Hey.
Think about it.
Most influential white athlete of all time. That's a bridge too far for me. Obviously, Babe Ruth, Joe Montana, Lance Armstrong, even Larry Bird. Tom Brady just retired from football 2 or 3 years ago. I know he wants to go viral. I even put Mickey Mantle. Maybe I should have put Joe DiMaggio. I don't know baseball that well enough to but Cailtin Clark. Steve, your reaction?
On the surface, I thought I was going to completely disagree with old Shady, right? And those athletes that you mentioned are icons. They are more popular than any women's basketball player could ever be. I agree with that. However, keep this in mind. Think about what would happen during this labor negotiation. Let's say it came over the news wire. Cailtin Clark has announced she's pregnant. She's not going to play for a couple of years. What would happen to that league? Those owners would say, every concession we gave in the CBA, take it all back. Take it all back. Now, those other players that you mentioned, when Joe Montana, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, all those white athletes, when they retired, guess what? The league still had incredible interest. In fact, I would say it continued to grow throughout the years. You take Cailtin Clark away from that W, it's over.
Lance Armstrong, cycling never got super popular, but once Lance Armstrong blew up, cycling kind of disappeared. If there's no Larry Bird, does Magic Johnson elevate to the level that he did? I still think it's a bridge too far. Skap, your thoughts?
I see a lot of heinous and reprehensible takes throughout the day on a day in and day out basis in sports. This, honestly, it's one of the worst I've ever seen in my entire life. So I guess I got to applaud. I got to tip my cap to LeSean McCoy for I guess, making history, at least in my own sports viewership here. I'm just at a loss for words, quite frankly. Like all the guys that you mentioned, Jason, undeniably, I think Tom Brady, this is kind of a hot take right here, guys. I think Tom Brady is actually the greatest athlete of all time. And for sports, in terms of team sports, I think that his gap, his separation from like number 2 in his sport is more pronounced, more extreme, and more vast than anybody in any other sport. That includes Wayne Gretzky's separation in the NHL, Michael Jordan's separation in the NBA. Look, Tom Brady, I see, Jason, your eyes are getting very wide here. So let me just kind of break this down real quick for you. Tom Brady has more yards and more touchdowns than anybody in league history. A guy would have to average for 20 straight years, 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns a year for 20 years to eclipse Tom Brady in yards.
They legalized defense during his era. Go ahead, Skap.
Hold on now. More wins in the regular season than anyone. Now, but here's the money spot right here for you, Jason. He has 35 playoff wins. That is more than any other franchise other than the Cowboys.
They play
Steelers,
more
Packers,
playoff games in this expanded NFL. Continue. I don't want to cut you off. Continue.
Joe Montana has 16. Okay, Tom Brady has 35. Think about that. Patrick Mahomes is number 2 with 17. So Mahomes and Montana cumulatively still have less than Tom Brady. And finally, Brady, 10 Super Bowl appearances, 7 wins. That is also 7 wins in 20 years as a starter, more than any franchise in league history, which is about 60 years since the AFL-NFL merger. Essentially, Tom Brady's resume in the NFL is what you would have if LeBron James's stats married with Bill Russell's team success in the NBA. If you put those two guys' resumes together, that's Tom Brady. That's how undeniably excellent and dominant that guy was for 20 years. But look, we're not really talking about best, right? This is kind of a battle of semantics. We're talking about influential.
Well, you changed the conversation now, Skap. So let us respond to that before you move on to the actual question I asked. Steve, is Skap right that Tom Brady is the greatest athlete of all time?
No, he might be the greatest quarterback. I don't think he is. I still have Joe Montana. You could actually tackle and maul quarterbacks back then. Look, the greatest athlete of my generation, of my lifetime, is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And I don't even think it's particularly close. From the time in his third year, the year after the broken foot, from 86, 87, all the way to the time he retired as a Chicago Bull, he was the most famous, popular, and best player on both ends of the court. And I think Bobby Knight said it best. Bobby Knight said during the summer of 84, they're going through the Olympic trials, and they had 8 exhibition games against the NBA Players Association. They won all 8 games. Near the end of that camp, Bobby Knight made a statement. He said, this is the greatest basketball player of all time. People thought he was nuts. And he said, I'm just telling you, watch. Bobby Knight, about 5 years later, was on David Letterman's show. And he said, I'm going to say one thing about Jordan. I think he's the greatest in his chosen field beyond sports, and by a good bit. I find it hard to disagree with how good he is.
Look, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has undeniably a better resume than Michael Jordan. He's been to 10 finals. He won 6, same as Michael Jordan. He's won more league MVPs than Michael Jordan. He has 6. His standard box counting stats are better. Kareem is top 3 in 4 of the major standard box numbers. I'm not saying that Jordan isn't the GOAT. He is by far my individual GOAT. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a pretty sound, I think, argument against Michael Jordan. And look, Steve, even people are touting LeBron James. So there is no conversation. Please present your case for Joe Montana over Tom Brady. That is lunacy that you would suggest that anybody else is in the same stratosphere as Tom Brady.
Well, I believe it was a more difficult era. Quarterbacks were not protected to the level. Neither were the wide receivers as they are today. But let me go back to Kareem. I love Kareem. He's the greatest center ever. And here's the problem with Kareem. Before Magic Johnson came into his life, this was just becoming him stat padding in L.A. I mean, look, I give Kareem credit. He won the MVP the year the Lakers won it in Magic's rookie year. People overlooked that. And he probably should have been the finals MVP. But the previous 4 years in L.A., prior to Magic, it was a slog, as I've told Jason, an absolute slog. And going back to Jordan, the greatest stat I can say about Jordan is this. In the decade of the 90s, every year that he started the year and ended the year as a Chicago Bull, they were the NBA champions.
Steve,
Chicago Bulls.
No
one has dominated to that.
Not,
maybe Bill Russell, but Bill Russell had, 8 teams in it? Come on, it's different.
Steve, they were not going to win either of those series against the Houston Rockets. All right, Jordan came back. He came back in the 95 season. They got worked by the Magic in the semis, and then the Magic went and got obliterated by Hakeem Olajuwon. 4-0 swept. The Bulls, their big problem was weakness underneath the basket during that time in the front court. Hakeem Olajuwon would have abused the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan saved. No one's as big of a Jordan fan as me. He saved his legacy by retiring for that full season in 94 and then coming back with only 17 games so people could utilize that as an excuse for him not winning in 95. Because Hakeem, the 2 years that he had in 94 and 95, he was going to win those titles whether Michael Jordan was in the NBA or not.
I've never heard anybody say this.
He was in the NBA in 95.
I've never heard anybody say this, and so I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
Pastor Brooks, I'm sorry you had to hear that as someone that lives in Chicago, and you may get questioned for even sitting through this conversation without objecting. we will say a prayer for you, Skap,
Yes.
and for Pastor Brooks. Don't visit O Block anytime soon, Skap.
Definitely.
Well, by the way, about Brady, there's a thing called Deflategate and the
Oh,
whole
stop, Steve.
the cheating
Can I say something
allegation.
about-
Stop.
Pastor
Joe
Brooks wants to
Montana
jump in.
never
Go
had
for it.
those
Look,
things.
when he
Oh, I
was
know.
suspended, hold on. He was suspended 4 games for that. And what happened when he came back after that 4-game suspension? 12-0. And then he came back. That was the year he came back from 28-3 in the Super Bowl, late in the third quarter. With who? Who were his wide receivers? Julian Edelman was his leading wide receiver in that game. Gronk wasn't even playing in that game. James White and Julian Edelman were the leading wide receivers in a Super Bowl. That Tom Brady came back 28-3 late in the third. Steve, stop. You're stretching. You are. This is such a reach for you right now.
Ding, ding,
wait,
ding.
wait a minute.
Go ahead, Steve.
Joe Montana in his first Super Bowl, his receivers were the relatively unknown Dwight Clark. The other guy was Freddie Solomon. I believe the running backs was a guy by the name of Ricky Patton. That's some other journeyman, Earl Cooper. And
What
he
about
won
Jerry
2 Super
Rice?
Bowls
Where did he come
pre-Jerry
along?
Rice. So look, I believe Brady is one of the all-time greats. But I've seen both of them. I believe the difference is Joe Montana had more athleticism and could use his legs and feet a little bit more effectively.
I actually think
just
John
my view.
Elway is the greatest quarterback to ever play, but I'm not going there.
Well, no one's ever said that.
I'm not going. Gentlemen, I'm gonna have to let y'all go. I'm gonna give Pastor Brooks the final say here. He wanted to answer the original question about Cailtin Clark.
Yeah, I was thinking about Cailtin Clark, and I chalked this up to LeSean McCoy, who I like, had a great career, good career, but his youthfulness. I mean, I don't even know if Cailtin Clark is on the top 3 list of white women as far as influential athletes. I mean, you got Nancy Lieberman, you got Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King. I mean, there's a long, I forget the name of the sister who won all the Olympic gold medals. There's a list that she may not even be in the top 3 females. So she's definitely not the most influential white athlete that ever lived.
I'm sorry I made room for him to make that comment, and now you're blaspheming Cailtin Clark on this show. I want to apologize to my audience. Cailtin
No,
Clark.
I love Cailtin Clark. Don't get me wrong. I love Cailtin Clark. And but I just don't know if she's the most influential.